Alcoholism in Native American communities.
American Indian historical trauma has been described as the collective, cumulative, and intergenerational psychosocial disability resulting from massive group-based oppression such as forced relocation, political subjugation, cultural domination, and genocide. The traumatic loss of Native Americans' land, culture, and people was never fully remedied by the U.S. government. This contributed to vulnerability to poor health being passed down through secondary transmission, that is, without first-hand experience with the trauma. Vulnerabilities to poor health may result from different biological mechanisms, as well as elevated cortisol levels, childhood poverty, and poor maternal health. Conscious awareness of traumatic memories that have not been resolved serves as an exacerbating factor for psychological problems. However, many Native Americans understand their current health and social issues as related to past trauma. It is hypothesized that the root of most present-day health problems among Native Americans was the colonization of the life world. Colonization of the life world is when colonization disrupts a Native group's ability to have culture, social integration, and socialization. American Indian elders and children were usually the groups hit hardest by war and disease. The effects of this were highly significant. The elders who had retained a wealth of medicinal knowledge and cultural and spiritual practices could not teach those practices to others in their tribe, and the children were a loss to the next generation where they might have affected social change. Tribes were often forced to leave their lands and relocate to other areas. This usually created physical and economic problems due to the loss of land and the lack of resources available to them in the foreign environments they were forced to move to. The loss of land and the meaning attached to it was also a loss of identity, as well as a loss of autonomy because they had no control over their regulation and ability to move throughout the land to attain more resources. They also lost the ability to recreate the cultural and spiritual practices that contributed to their spiritual relationship with the lands they inhabited. The places that American Indian tribes were forced to relocate to often did not have many plentiful resources, but had harsh climates and barren landscapes.
American Indian children experienced further loss of identity as new policies were enacted to break down the language and family system of their native culture by taking children from their families and placing them into boarding schools. In mainstream America, American Indian children were not considered equals and their culture was discredited and belittled. This system left these children with no sense of identity in the culture in which they were being forced into, or within their own culture which they were physically distanced from. The attempts to eliminate American Indian ways of life are referred to as cultural genocide. Cultural rituals are mechanisms for family and clan cohesion and were prohibited up until 1978 when the American Indian Religious Freedom Act was passed. As part of establishing a needs assessment in California during the 1970s,
An analysis of the dreams of American Indian community members made it clear that the effects of colonization were still experienced as a spiritual wound or soul wound. The unhealed soul wound has led to alcohol and substance abuse being a factor in more than 60% of mortality and morbidity in Native Americans.
Native American communities have significantly higher rates of substance abuse compared to the overall United States population. Statistics from 2002 to 2004 showed substance abuse-related deaths in the Native American community as 1.5 times greater than any other ethnic group in the United States. This has increased by 206% since 1981. Alcohol usage is one of the highest reported substance abuse issues. The Center for Disease Control reported in 2011 that Native American and Alaskan Native populations had the highest prevalence in frequency and intensity of binge drinking compared to other ethnic groups. Drinking-related deaths included drinking and driving, chronic liver disease or cirrhosis, and high rates of suicide. All three are the top 10 leading causes of death for Native American and Alaskan Natives. Suicide rates are on the 8th top leading cause of death. Unintentional accidents, which include car accidents and drinking and driving, are the 3rd leading cause of death and 138% higher than other Americans. Chronic liver disease and cirrhosis death rates are 368% higher than other Americans. This is my concern, that mental health is bad. You have horrible statistics but no information about why it's so horrible. So if you treat the symptom of alcoholism and not have it in the context of historical trauma, you're going to miss what really the whole family is suffering from, what the whole generation is suffering from. So this is my big concern of that historical trauma doesn't really get assessed as a diagnosis. It doesn't get treated. California Native American Community Leader.
Created using Powtoon.